This program is a presentation of UCTV for educational and non-commercial use only.
Well, my dear friends, let me welcome you once again, this time officially, and in the context of our Hemiscope series here at the Center for Iberian and Latin American Studies at the University of California, San Diego. This program is part of an international conference that has brought to CELAS, to the center, and to UCSD colleagues from many parts of the United States and from Latin America. And we are very fortunate that part of our program is a discussion we want to present to you that will be taken place right here and now with two distinguished experts, friends, and colleagues, all in one person, that is two persons actually. On my right, in white, I'm sure you can recognize it, we have Stefano Varese. Stefano Varese was one of the first persons who ever did research on the Amazon basin, and this is exactly our topic. And he's currently a professor at the University of California in Davis, and so we're very fortunate to have him with us today for this discussion. Behind me in a darker suit is Professor Rodrigo Montoya. And Rodrigo Montoya is a very well-known anthropologist in Peru, and he's coming from Peru to us as a visiting professor at the Center for Iberian and Latin American Studies. And he has also been a visiting professor with CELAS for many times by now. So he's also most welcome, and we appreciate to have you here. And with no further ado, I will give the word over to Stefano Varese. Welcome, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, Christina, for this invitation. Thank you very much, the University of California, San Diego. And I'm especially happy to be here with my old friend and colleague, Rodrigo Montoya, with whom we worked together many years ago. I don't want to say how many years ago. Myself dealing with the Amazonia of Peru, the Amazon region of Peru, and Rodrigo with the Andes. But slowly but surely, Rodrigo moved into the Amazonian region with his interest as a social anthropologist, committed social anthropologist. So the question is, what is the current situation of the Amazon? And I have, because of my age, probably I have some biographical issue to put forward. Rodrigo, you remember that I went to the Amazon region when I was very young in the early 60s. And there I learned very soon that it was impossible to do non-committed, not engaged anthropology, and not engaged history, because I was coming from an ethno-historical position, and I wanted to understand what was that helped the Ashaninka, the Kampa, called at that time the Kampa, to resist so much invasion, occupation of their lands, and deterioration of the culture and so on. And I learned from them that the strength was basically in their conception of the world, their conception of life, and what kept them together was their cosmology, basically. And so I emphasized at that point the spiritual strength of the Ashaninka versus other issues like the strength of their economics that was not there to be seen, at least. So that helped me to understand years later why the social movement of the Amazonian people, the native people of the Amazon region, or comunidades nativas, we call them since the 70s, is so obvious and is so successful in a sense in resisting the expropriation of their lands, the expropriation of their resources. As we speak, and we know just by reading the internet, as we speak, there are 30,000 members of the indigenous community that are opposing measures of the government, of Alan Garcia in this case, the national Peruvian government, to expropriate their lands and to commoditize once more, another attempt to commoditize their lands, their resources, their life. And so my question, and it's a question to myself and to you, is how can we explain this ability of the indigenous people of the Amazon to resist and to reconfigure their culture and their political action and adapt the response to a massive global invasion of the land through corporation helped by the state, by conniving government usually, and so on. If we think that these people were classified, typified by all the ethnographers and polyscientists as primitive, as pre-political. You remember the famous dictum of Eric Hobsbawm about the peasant rebellion? Oh, these are pre-political movements, Eric Hobsbawm. And so we could have thought that that is also the case of the indigenous people of the Amazon, that they are going sort of semi-naked, impoverished, and nevertheless they have this incredible strength in offering alternative and responses to the globalization from the top. So that's the question. And when I started to look at the chronology of the movement, I found out that already in 1959, the Ashaninka of the Pyrenees were already fighting against the Peruvian corporation, a British colonial, post-colonial enterprise that had occupied thousands of acres and hectares of their land. And so they were organizing already a response in coalition with colonists, with people from the Andes, 1959. And then 15 years later, they got organized in the organization, what is the name?
IDESEP.
IDESEP. And they got organized multi-tribally, many people together, federation, confederation, and they are offering now this incredible resistance to their expropriation and the expropriation of their lands and so on. And now comes the question, how do we compare this to the Andean peasant, indigenous of the Andes movement that was so strong in the 50s and the 60s with occupation of lands, etc. All those beautiful novels by Scorza describing this fight of the Andean people to recuperate their lands, communal land. And this sort of recent, and I don't want to use a strong word, but a recent passivity of the Andes in response to this attempt to globalize, internationalize their economy and privatize the resources and land. So this is the question we should probably discuss together.
Okay. Thank you, Cristina. Thank you to Silas for this invitation. And I am very happy too, because Stefano Varese is one of most important anthropologists in Amazonian region, in Peru, in South America. And he's a friend, a very loved friend. In last 50 years, we have discovered a new actor in Latin America. The political indigenous movement organized with their languages, with their claims, with their own voices. And they are changing not only their situation, but they are obligate to us, to other people in our countries, to think seriously in other horizon, in other future for our countries. The connection between Andes and Amazonia was a connection with many problems. Classical historical problems with Amazonian and Incas in the first time. Classical problems with Andean migrants going to Amazonia trying to resolve the problem of poverty with a cultural conflict between them. In this condition, the situation of Amazonian Indians with Andean peasants, with Andean indigenous, is a complex and difficult situation. We are, in this moment, trying to create the condition for a dialogue. And this dialogue is coming with some external influences, positive influences. In the first case is Bolivian influence. The Bolivian case for us is maybe one horizon, not only for peasants, not only for indigenous. Bolivia has produced one revolution, very important revolution in 1952, before some of more important change in our continent. Bolivia had, in other moment, the union of workers very hard and very united. And for them, the union of workers was the condition for political work. And this is an example for Latin America, where the classical inheritance of Marxists, of classical left, is the division, all time the division. In the case of Bolivia, they have learned to us to be united all time with union of workers. But today we are discovering new voices, new claims. The first is the notion of territory, defense of culture, defense of languages, defense of identities, defense of biodiversity. And in the last 5 years, we are discovering one new claim, who is the spirituality, new spirituality. And maybe this case is a potential for our future, because in the center of the attention is the religion. For indigenous people, spirituality is a gratitude with nature, with Mother Earth, with rivers, with oceans, with seas, no more. Only gratitude, only solidarity, only respect, only reciprocity with nature. In the case of classical religions, religion means powerful gods, able to punish to people, able to send us suffering, death. And for this Amazonian and Andean people, they are thinking only in an offering to Mother Earth, to rivers, to sea, and promise to Mother Earth respect, dignity. Another element now is making a way, special way, with Alincausay. Alincausay in Quechua is a good live. And they are trying to create a new position face to classical notion, Western notion of development. Development means accumulation, means richesse, means individualism. And Alincausay, good live, means reciprocity, means resolve the basic problems no more, and eliminate of the horizon all this idea of accumulation and richesse. Maybe this is one of more moments for change our political vision in Western society. I am convinced that political parties on the left, on the right, must learn this lesson coming from the indigenous political movement. And I want to ask you, what is your vision of this historical problem between Amazonian people with Andean people? I am sure that these historical difficulties are one element of resistance to dialogue, for the union, maybe in future alliance between two forces.
I think you have touched a very important issue. I'm convinced that the split between the Andes and what we call the jungle, la Selva, the Amazon region in Peru, especially in Peru, is a result of colonialism. Because when I did my research for La Sala de los Cerros, I found that people, the Ashaninka, at the time called Camparites or Campa, or Antis, Antisuyo, remember the definition?
Yeah.
They were familiar with the Andean people. And there were trades. After all, Coca is a plant that grows in the tropics. And salt from the Sal de los Cerros was traded in the... So there was a relation that was disrupted in a very violent way by the colonial occupation. And then, during the Republican time, in the 19th century, when, or the end of the 18th, but the 19th century, after the rebellion of Juan Santos, what happened is that the push out of the Andes of landless peasants produced a massive movement of occupational land that was exacerbated in the post-World War II period, when Belaunde started the idea that we had to conquer the jungle. And so that split has to be healed. There must be a process of healing that will take place between the indigenous organization of the Andes, peasant basically, and the indigenous organization of the Amazonia. And I see very good signs in this movement of resistance to privatization of the resources, because that is the precursor of an attempt to privatize again more and more the land and resources of the Andean people and coastal people and everybody, because that's the final project of late capitalism, introduce the notion of private property and commoditization of nature all over. So I see a light of hope in this.
In this moment, with conflict in Amazonian region in Peru against Alan Garcia, president of Peruvian Republic, he is appearing one new element. This is a possible competition between leaders coming from Amazonia with leaders coming from Andes region. And maybe this competition could be positive for the future, but in the present situation is an element for resist even once again the dialogue that we need.
I don't know if maybe one element that we have to take into consideration is that the classist analysis of the social situation did not really take hold among the indigenous people of the Amazon, while it took hold a long time ago, since Mariátegui and before Mariátegui, in the Andes. And that has caused a kind of secularization of the struggle, in the sense that the struggle is perceived through lenses that are Western, Eurocentric, European lenses. And the issue of cultural identity and Andean spirituality have been sort of put aside. In the Amazon, instead, that process of introducing Marxist and socialist and leftist perspective, of which I have been very fond of, myself, hasn't been so successful, thus leaving more space for the expression of deep civilizational issues. So that actually what they are telling us is that there are other alternatives to the Western-centric model of development.
Okay, maybe we have a question?
From the public?
Yes.
So the question is, and I don't think we get a reward for answering it correctly. What is the future of the Amazon or Amazonia or the Amazon basin? And I think that we have to specify that what is the future in political terms, social term, environmental term, economic term. Maybe to this question I should clarify, we should clarify that in Peru we say Amazonia, and by that we mean 60% of the national territory, which lies on the eastern side of the Andes. But Amazon is huge, and there are many countries in the Amazon. So for what I can speak of is a little bit about the Amazonia of Peru, Amazonia of Peru. And to me, and I can say a few words and then you can put your grain of salt in this. I think that it's the time to create a larger alliance of forces for the Amazonian people and in general for the people that disenfranchised people of the world, but in this case of Peru and Latin America. The alliance is based on environmental issue, on cultural / civilization issue, because it's a matter of civilization. We have seen in this recent crisis of late capitalism or wild capitalism, whatever we want to call it, we have seen a deep crisis of Western-centric way of dealing with nature, with life, with humans, and with the universe in general. And it is time to look deep into our own tradition, whatever those traditions are, that are way older than capitalism, much older than capitalism. Judeo-Christian tradition, Islamic tradition, and then American tradition, American Indian tradition, and find alternative way of development. So the future, in reality, can be only predicted if we do a self-analysis as members of specific society and discover where are the roots of alternatives. No, they are not in the future. They are not in, I think, this is my personal opinion, they are not in stressing more and more what we have been doing for the last 500 or 600 years, but in exploring real alternatives. So that would be my answer to this question. But
in last Social World Forum in Belém do Pará in last February, maybe 4,000, 5,000 indigenous people have participated in this forum. And they've become the principal actor of 1 week of this forum. And I keep one element. The Indian was absolutely unified for we must defend our Amazonia. We must defend our Mother Earth because the capitalist system is destroying, is trying to finish with resources, finish with oil, with gas, with food, with fish in rivers, and they have clear conscience of the danger for them. In the same time, they say, defending our Amazonia, we are defending human beings in our planet. It's not only one strife only for us. It's for, in Quechua sense of us, for all us in the world. And maybe, in my opinion, we are faced a terrible danger because with this desire of multinationals, enterprises, for take oil, gas, wood, and all the resources, they will leave Indian society with nothing. And our countries reduce it to a most important poverty. In the other side, I am convinced that maybe I will try to say it with a reproduction of some words of Zapatistas in Mexico. I remember I saw one slogan in one demonstration in Chiapas: Nunca más sin nosotros, never more without us. And maybe this is a finally result of these strides. The exclusion, the classical exclusion, is finishing, and maybe the exclusion must be replaced by first time in our history one democratic situation, consulting all people, and with indigenous people in the first line, with their voices, with their claims, with their colors, and maybe this is the more positive future for us.
Yes, I agree.
Well, we want to say thank you.